Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what is mental health, because most of the people, they don't really know what mental health means. So let's just discuss that. According to the World Health Organization, mental health is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to her or his community. So it's not like that mental health is only about one particular individual and his own personal life. It also includes all the, the social aspects of a person's life as well. So mental health is more than just the absence of mental disorders or disabilities. So if a person is, not mentally retarded, or is not showing some, weird symptoms, that doesn't necessarily mean that a person is mentally healthy. So good mental health is about not only avoiding active conditions, but also looking after ongoing wellness and happiness. The fact that someone is not experiencing a mental health condition doesn't necessarily mean their mental health is flourishing. Likewise, it's possible to be diagnosed with a mental health condition while feeling well in many aspects of life. So if, even if a person, that person appears to be really happy and very positive, even then the person could be suffering from some mental health issues. We can, just refer to some of the examples, like, when people usually they do suicides. So people, they, their friends and family members, they say that, oh, hame to pata hi nahi tha, like that person was, struggling with some issues. So that happens often. Okay, so there's this confusion that I want to clear. Mental illness versus mental disability. A lot of people don't really want to talk about mental health because they think people will consider them as mentally disabled or as mentally retarded. So this is a confusion that a lot of people have. So let's just clear this one. Mental illness is also known as mental health disorder or behavioral health disorder. It affects emotions, mood, thought processes, or behavior, and can manifest in anyone at any time in their life. And mental disability is also called as the intellectual disability. It results in lower IQ and difficulty with coping with realities of day-to-day life. It is usually diagnosed at a tender age. Okay, so the mental disability that I was talking about, it usually, it's diagnosed at the early stages of life, when the person, has a very very lower IQ and is not able to perform the normal routine tasks. That is, that is the retardation. But mental illness or the mental health disorders that we're talking about right now, they can happen at any time in our life, and they don't affect the day-to-day life processes as such, but they affect the emotions and the way we react to situations, our mood and stuff like that. So it doesn't lower the IQ, it just affects our productivity levels. Okay, so some common early signs, but excuse me, just a second. Okay, yeah. So some common early signs are aging or sleeping too much or too little. It usually happens that when a person is either depressed or, is experiencing some sort of other disorders, there's a slight change in their sleeping routine as well as the way they eat their food. Either they overeat or they don't eat at all. So these are like some of the very common signs. Then pulling away from people and usual activities. Um, there's a loss of interest in the activities that people usually enjoy, and they sort of tend to, dissociate with their friends, their family members. They don't like spending time with them. They prefer staying alone. They have low or no energy, and they feel numb. They feel like nothing matters. There's a sense of purposelessness, we can say. Then unexplained aches and pains, feeling helpless or hopeless. In some cases, people even resort to smoking or drinking and using drugs. And then there's also feelings of confusion, forgetfulness, and the mood swings. Suddenly, the person gets really happy, and then there's a mood swing, and then the person gets really angry or upset. So you can't really predict what's going to happen. Then yelling or fighting with family and friends, as mentioned earlier, that people sort of tend to pull away, and then that increases their the resentment and all those negative feelings. Then experiencing severe mood swings, and then having persistent thoughts and memories you can't get out of your head. So it's like your mind is not in your own control. There are so many thoughts and stuff going on in your mind, you can't really control them. And sometimes it also happens that you hear voices, so that's like you're hallucinating. Then thinking of harming yourself or others. Then there's people tend to go towards the self-harm thing, or they take out their all the emotions, their anger on different, either they break things or they harm others. Inability to perform daily tasks like getting to work or school, because they don't really feel motivated, they don't have energy, they don't like doing things. So their normal routine gets disturbed. So if you think that if you think you can relate to these things, or maybe you can, if you any of your friend or your family members is showing some signs like this, maybe you should check upon them and get to know if they're if there's something going on. So now coming on to some common mental health issues. Okay, first of all, the most common one is depression. Let us not confuse depression with sadness. Sadness is a different thing. Depression is something different. Depression, particularly the clinical depression. Okay, the main symptoms are, you feel low and you lose pleasure in the things that you enjoyed. And these symptoms may be combined with others, such as feeling tearful, irritable, or tired most of the time, changes in appetite, and problems with sleep, concentration, and memory. Okay, so there was a time when I was in depression. So I especially know what it felt like to be in depression. All the symptoms mentioned over here are exactly what I felt. I used to love studying and reading books, but when I was in depression, these things didn't, they didn't make me happy. Then feeling tearful, all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, I would start crying, and there wouldn't be any reason. Irritable, I used to get very irritated, and I was tired. I it was like I wanted to sleep all the time, but I couldn't sleep. So I just laid down. I just lied down in my bed and did nothing. Changes in appetite. Yeah, there were a lot of changes in my appetite. I started eating a lot. I gained a lot of weight. Problems with sleep, yes. Concentration, yes. So people with depression typically have lots of negative thoughts and feelings of guilt and worthlessness. They often criticize themselves and lack confidence. So, how is it depression different from the normal sadness that we experience? The sadness that we experience in our day to day lives, that's temporary. Okay, so you may feel sad for some time, but then there's, you eventually you get over that thing. But when you are depressed, it's like a constant state of sadness. You don't get out of it, you sort of learn to live with it. It doesn't end, it's a part of your personality. Now anxiety. Okay, so I had depression and I had anxiety as well. So anxiety, the main symptoms are having a number of different worries that are excessive and out of proportion to a particular situation, and having difficulty in controlling one's worries. A person with generalized anxiety disorder may also feel irritable and have physical symptoms such as restlessness, feeling easily tired, and having tense muscles. They may also have trouble concentrating or sleeping. Because I had both at the same time, depression and anxiety, so most of my symptoms were common. to both depression and anxiety. But one thing was particularly related to anxiety was that I used to feel restless at times, and my hands used to start this shaking, and if I tried to do something that I didn't want to, I used to my pulse rate used to get high, and I used to start sweating, so stuff like that happened. Okay, so anxiety is often confused with stress, but stress and anxiety are different things. Prolonged stress can result into anxiety, but stress and anxiety are different things. Just like depression and sadness are different things. Stress is also like the usual stress that we face in our day-to-day lives. Once the situation is over, you get over the situation, you move on, and that thing, it doesn't bother you anymore. But in anxiety, it's like it's continuous, it happens all the time. Okay, one more thing. There are mood swings also. So it's like you have highs and lows. Suddenly you feel very happy and very grateful, and so happy and so positive. And then at the next moment, you just experience such a low. Um, it's like it's a continuous cycle. Panic disorders. Panic disorders are, the main symptoms are having unexpected and recurring panic attacks. Okay, this is also that a lot of people face. Alhamdulillah, I didn't have this one, but yeah, panic attacks are very common. See, the problem is most of us have been facing these issues, but we don't acknowledge them. We don't recognize that, okay, this was the issue and this is what we were, going through. So we need to normalize the discussion around these things. And also worrying about having another panic attack. One of the symptoms of panic attack is an increased heart rate. A panic attack may happen because of a particular situation, something that the person fears or wants to avoid, or it may have no obvious cause. People who have panic attacks often change their behavior as a consequence of the attack, which may develop into phobias such as agoraphobia. Okay, so I think most of us can relate to this thing. We have panic attacks at times. Okay, coming to the next thing. Okay, I'm kind of hurrying up because there are a lot of slides. So I'm sorry for that. Okay, now OCD. OCD is also something very common, and OCD should not be confused with, the perfectionism thing. Because it's kind of it has become sort of trendy. People say that, okay, I'm feeling sort of OCD. No, OCD is not like that. OCD stands for the obsessive compulsive disorder. The main symptoms are having thoughts, images, or impulses that keep coming into the mind and are difficult to get rid of, called obsessions. And a strong feeling that the person must carry out or repeat certain physical acts or mental processes called compulsions. Common obsessions include being afraid of dirt and germs. This is a very, very, very common thing. I have heard a lot about, people obsessing over washing their hands. See, being hygienic and being OCD, like suffering from OCD, these are different things. When you're hygienic, it is under control. You just careful about not getting the germs. But when a person is suffering from OCD, it gets out of control. That person is always washing their hands, always taking baths, and it's very problematic. Okay, now let's move on to PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, psychological and physical symptoms that can sometimes follow particular threatening or distressing events. As the name suggests, it's post-traumatic. It's like when a person experiences something that's very traumatic for them. As a result of that trauma that they have faced, uh, they suffer from this. And PTSD is having repeated and intrusive distressing memories of the event. Okay, so because of that, that event, those memories, they get so engraved into the mind that it's very, very, very difficult to get them out of the mind. There may also be a feeling of reliving the event through flashbacks or nightmares. Okay, so flashbacks and nightmares. There can also be physical reactions such as shaking and sweating. So it's basically like you're reliving, re-experiencing whatever you faced at that time. Okay, so these were some of the very common mental health disorders. There are many, many, many more, but I thought let's just discuss a few of them, which are pretty common. Okay, so now I'm going to discuss about spirituality and mental health. Okay, so modern science has recently taken a keen interest in the wisdom found in the ancient Eastern traditions such as Buddhism, Taoism, and Hinduism. In the relatively new field of positive psychology, many of these Eastern traditions are utilized to enhance general well-being. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness meditation is a great example of a modern psychological intervention that has been taken directly from the East. Okay, yeah. So, talking about meditation, meditation is something that the West has copied, or sort of, they have taken the inspiration from the East. Meditation is a really, really powerful tool when it comes to, calming down your mind and, training your mind. And even in Islam, like, when we offer salah, when we offer namaz, we are sort of practicing meditation. However, the tradition of spirituality within Islam is arguably the least examined of all the world's major spiritual philosophies in terms of its potential effects on well being. In the modern era, the Islamic tradition tends to be spoken of solely in terms of dogma, emphasizing its political, ritual, and legal doctrines while neglecting its profound spiritual and moral dimensions. Historically, however, many Muslim scholars dedicated their lives to exploring spiritual and psychological questions of human well being and flourishing. Okay, so while I was preparing this presentation, I came across a lot of research papers which talked about, there was a lot of information actually, and what it was really surprising for me because I never came across those things. It was, there were a lot of scholars and a lot of work has been done by the Muslim scholars related to mental health through through spirituality. So but the problem is that we don't really know about it because it's not into the mainstream. So we sort of need to talk more about it. We need to learn more about it. Okay, so I came across this attachment theory. The attachment theory is, it says that having a secure attachment has been linked to the overall well-being, coping, better mental health outcomes, enhanced self-esteem, and stronger relationship functioning. Thus, having a healthy attachment to God would also be linked to better psychological functioning. When we're attached to someone, we sort of have a sense of, purpose. We know the purpose of our life, and it sort of prevents us from going into the, the downhole. So here's a verse from the Quran: and whoever puts his trust in Allah, then he will suffice. Islamic psychology, I have tried to sum up a few things. There was a lot of stuff out there, so I've taken a few things. Okay, I will share this PDF, this presentation, so you all can go through it later on if you want to, because there is a lot of stuff, and I don't think I can read out everything. Okay, so Islamic psychology, or the science of the nerves, is the philosophical study of the psyche or the mind from an Islamic perspective. Okay, so in the Quran, let me just go to the next section. Okay, so in Quran, there's mention of three states of nerves. Okay, what's nafs? Nafs is used to indicate our own self, right? States of nafs. So first of all, this is the the lowest level, nafs al-ammara, the commanding self. If we have nafs al-ammara, it means we are subjugated by the self. We listen and follow its commands. This stage describes the part of us that requires material possessions and sensual desires. Okay, so at this state of nerves, which is the lowest one, we are basically our mind is, it's controlled by our own desires. We don't have any control over it. We are driven by whatever our desires are making us do. We do that. The second one is nafs al lawama. This is the conscience that we're talking about. It tells us about our own perfections. It is inspired by our hearts. We see the results of our actions and weaknesses and aspire for perfection. So this is like the stage where you're sort of, trying to change yourself. You're working on yourself. Now coming to the third and the best one, it's like the ideal situation, nafs al mutmainna, the peaceful self. It implies contentment and peace, and there are no immoral desires. This is the ideal state of ego. There is tranquility and peace. So, this is what we want to achieve this stage. The Quran explains how these states command our psyche and tell us what to do. They control us and dominate us. When our emotional needs are being poorly met, Nafs al-Ammara begins to control our feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. The Quran provides guidance to learn and practice relaxation exercises to weaken the influence of the Nafs al-Ammara. When it is in control, our thoughts are distorted, leading us to take things personally, to see everything in a negative light, and believe that things can't be changed for the better. So that is the lowest level. When our conscience, the nafs al-lawwama, is active, which is the second level, we become aware that something is wrong with the way we are feeling and behaving. So this is a positive sign that we're trying to change ourselves. We are, first of all, we're aware of the fact that we need to change, and that in itself is a really big thing. Because unless we have the awareness, unless we um, we realize that we need to change something, obviously we can't do anything. We won't be growing, we won't be changing ourselves. So this realization in itself is a very, very important thing. We can then learn to challenge negative thinking, leading us to our nafs al mutmainna. Okay, so there's one thing that I really want to talk about. um, the nafs al mutmainna, that is like the ideal stage, ideal situation. And ideal situations are those that can't be achieved, but we need to make efforts towards, reaching that stage. So even if you're not attaining that level, you don't have to be disheartened. You don't have to, get depressed. Oh, you know I'm not reaching that level. It's not about that. What matters more is that you're struggling, you're trying to change, and that is what matters the most. So, coming on to some tips. Okay, so let me just clear out a few points. These tips that I'm going to talk about are to improve your mental health, but these tips, whatever is there, it can never be a substitute for like proper professional help. Just like exercising and good diet, it keeps your it keeps you physically healthy. These tips can keep you mentally healthy, but when you get ill, when you get sick, you go visit a doctor, right? You just don't rely on physical exercises and your diet to get better. Similarly, if you're having some mental health issues, you need to go see a doctor or a psychologist. You need professional help, basically. Okay, so take care of your physical health. Good physical health and good mental health are definitely intertwined, from reducing screen time to establishing a good sleep routine to taking the time to exercise. There are many ways in which improving our physical health can make us less anxious or stressed. Okay, so when I went to my doctor for the first time, the first thing that he suggested me was to improve, improve my sleep schedule. He said that you have to sleep early and you have to wake up early, and that is actually very beneficial. It really changes a lot of things. And this, like, reducing screen time is really important, because when you're just scrolling, you're not actually doing anything, and that adds to that, sense of purposeless feeling, because you're not really doing anything, you're not being productive, and you're just you know feeding on negativity. The benefits of a healthy diet cannot be overemphasized. Yeah, healthy diet also helps a lot, because after all, everything is, all of it is all, dependent on your hormones. So the body needs to function properly. Eat and drink, and do not commit excess. Indeed, he does not love those who are excessive. Remember to be balanced above all. Too much of any kind of food will have a negative effect on your health. Also, remember that while these foods can cure many problems, if your depression or anxiety is more severe, your GP here means general physician, may recommend that you take medication in addition to these lifestyle changes. Okay, so lifestyle changes help a lot, but you may need professional help, and that will be decided by the doctor. You cannot diagnose, and you cannot decide whether you need help or not. Change the role of the news cycle in your life. Okay, so over the past few months, actually, there have been a lot of negative news, and they have had a really bad impact on our mental health. I come from Jamia Millia Islamia, and from December we've been, the violence that happened, and then after that, all the protests were there. Then the riots that happened in Northeast Delhi, and everything was so negative, so negative, and there was so much of bad news coming along. It 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 had a lot of negative effect on our mental health. So taking a break from news is a common mental health tip, especially in this day and age when news fatigue is so widespread. Avoiding the news definitely decreases the negativity in your life, allowing you to focus more positively on family and friends, work, hobbies, creative endeavors, and your spiritual journey. Okay, so it is important to put our trust in Allah with regards to His plan and not succumb to despair. No matter what we see around us, we must remember that Allah, the all knowing, the best of judges, and the most compassionate and gracious, told the angels regarding humans. Indeed, I know that which you do not. Okay, so first of all, in spite of all the negativity, we need to know that Allah is there with us. He's the most compassionate, He's the most gracious, and whatever He plans is the best. And secondly, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whosoever of you sees an evil, let him change it with his hand, and if he is not able to do so, then with his tongue, and if he is not able to do so, then with his heart." And that is the weakest of faith. So instead of just being a consumer of the news, we should work to change it, whether this means raising awareness on social media, taking part in protests or demonstrations, or alleviating suffering by giving charity. All right, so fine, there is a lot of news, a lot of negative news coming along, and everything is negative. But what are you doing to combat that? What are you doing to solve the problem? You're just consuming the negativity, but you're not doing anything. So that also needs to change. Help others and you will help yourself. Okay, this is a really beautiful thing. Be kind and generous is scientifically proven to be better for your mental and physical health. One study conducted by University of Zurich found that helping others and being generous to them increases happiness. And research has also shown that those who are generous tend to have better health, such as lower blood pressure and even a longer life expectancy. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Charity is due upon every joint of the people for every day upon which the sun rises." Whether this is smiling at a friend, making a colleague a cup of tea, or transforming an orphan's life for just a day. Following the sunnah of regular charity will not only make the world a better place, it will also improve your mental health. But all the good deeds that you do, they bring a lot of positivity in your life. No matter how small it is, every little act of charity adds a lot of positivity. Remember Allah and trust in His support even when you feel isolated from it. Okay, this is one of my favorite verses from the Quran. Verily, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. Whichever emotion is troubling your heart, anxiety, jealousy, stress, indecision, anger, discontentment, worry, sadness, fear, hurt, grief. Remembering Allah through zikr, dua, contemplation, or prayer will help to elevate it. Okay, so let me just skip on to this part. Sorry. Yeah. Even when you try to remember him, you don't feel like it's helping. Your heart is not at rest, right? Yeah, so Prophet ﷺ was feeling worried and anxious when he didn't have revelation for a long time. The verses of Surah Duha are specifically directed at soothing the Prophet's heart. By the morning brightness and by the night when it covers with darkness, your Lord has neither forsaken you nor has he become displeased. And surely the hereafter is better for you than the first life, and surely your Lord will give to you, and you shall be well pleased. This whole surah, in fact, not just these verses, the whole surah is is so beautiful and so full of positivity. Even if you feel hopeless and alone in your connection with Allah, don't despair. Persevere in remembering Him and know that He is remembering you, even if it takes you time to truly feel and understand it. Focus on the positive aspects of life. And if you would count the graces of Allah, never could you be able to count them. This life lesson is especially applicable in the age of social media. Be grateful for what you have instead of focusing on what you don't. Okay, so this technique of being grateful, gratitude, this is something that I have found in almost all the self-help books. They always talk about optimism, being grateful, and the thankfulness and all the positivity that it brings to your life. And it's so beautiful that you know um, the concept of sabr and shukr and tawakkul also in Islam. These are such beautiful concepts. If you understand and you learn more about these things, um, they're really helpful. Now, coming back to Surah Duha, after Allah has reassured the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that he has not been forsaken, he goes on to say, so now Allah Pak is reminding him of all the blessings. Did he not find you an orphan and give you refuge? And he found you lost and guided you. And he found you poor and made you self-sufficient. So as for the orphan, do not oppress them. And as for the petitioner, do not repel him. And as for the favor of your Lord, proclaim it. Okay, so earlier we discussed that we should be doing little acts of charity. We have to be grateful. So all of these things, they are interconnected. Once you're grateful, you'll realize that, okay, Allah Pak has blessed me so much. I will be held accountable for these blessings. I need to pass on these to others who don't have these. So firstly, when you're feeling lost or troubled, remember the countless blessings Allah has bestowed upon you in the past and present and be grateful. Then, secondly, use the blessings Allah has given you to make a positive change in someone else's life. Whether this be by volunteering or by supporting your loved ones and listening to their problems, it will surely help your own mental health. It definitely does. Living in the present moment. Usually, what happens is when we're depressed, we're sort of living in the past, right? Um, we think about all the past decisions that we have taken, all the mistakes that we have done. I'm sorry, there's some sort of noise from someone's end. Okay. So, and when a person is dealing with anxiety, it's usually related to the future. What happens is when we're living in the past or in the future, we tend to forget the present moment. If we live in the present, it will help us avoid a lot of mental health issues. The reality of faith is knowing that what has passed by you was not going to befall you, and that what has befallen you is not going to pass by. Your risk provision was written down before you were even born, so trust that. Whatever happened in the past, it was part of Allah's plan, and He will also take care of you in the future. Have the wisdom to only take care of what is in your control without worrying about everything that could go wrong. Remember, whatever your present moment looks like, it can be good for you if you simply add the ingredients of gratitude and patience. As I said, sabr and shukr. Okay, this is a beautiful hadith, very, very beautiful hadith. How wonderful is the affair of the believer, for there is good for him in every matter, and this is not the case with anyone except the believer. If he is happy, then he thanks Allah, and thus there is good for him. And if he is harmed, then he shows patience, and thus there is good for him. So it's all about, sabr and shukr. When everything is going on good, you need to be grateful. You need to you need to have shukr. And when there are hardships, you need to be patient, you need to have sabr. And in both the situations, if you're dealing in this way, irrespective of how the world perceives the situation, it's always positive for you. Number 7, invest in your afterlife. Okay, coming back to this verse. um, yeah. And surely the hereafter is better for you than the first life, and surely your Lord will give to you, and you shall be well pleased. Although it is important not to worry about the future, we should remember that our ultimate purpose in life is to please Allah, and the choices we make should reflect that. One of the best ways we can invest in our afterlife is by giving sadaqah jariyah. So sadaqah jariyah is, like, some of the examples can be understood from this hadith. Indeed, the rewards of his actions and good deeds that will reach a believer after his death are knowledge which he taught and spread, a righteous child whom he leaves behind, a copy of the Quran that he leaves as a legacy, or a masjid that he built, or a house that he built for wayfarers, a canal that he dug, or charity that he gave from his wealth in his good health and life. These days will reach him after his death. Sadaqah Jariyah means a flowing continuous charity which benefits the recipient multiple times. It makes you feel like you're truly making a difference, which is good for your mental health, whether it is by teaching a hadith, giving a piece of advice, or giving a pound in charity. A single seemingly insignificant action can lead to countless rewards. Surround yourself with positive people. The servants of the compassionate are those who walk upon the earth in humility. When the ignorant addresses them, they say peace. It is not always possible to remove the negative people in our life. They may be family or colleagues, in which case we have to manage our relationship with them with grace. Okay, there's a grammatical error over here. Okay, so we need to let go of the toxic people. All the toxic friends that we have, the toxic so-called friends, I would say, not friends, because they're not really adding any value to your life. They're just being the source of all the negativity. They always belittle you, and they're wasting your time. They're making you feel not good about yourself. So you need to analyze, uh, if your friends are really your friends or not. It's important to surround ourselves with positive people. They make us feel happier and help us be our better selves. Verily, the parable of good company and a bad company is only that of a seller of musk and blacksmith. This is a hadith that I'm quoting over here. The seller of musk will give you some perfume, you will buy some, or you will notice a good smell. As for blacksmith, he will burn your clothes, or you will notice a bad smell. Have faith in your own ability to grow. You probably have a lot on your plate. It may even be almost too much, but it is never more than you can bear. And it's again a beautiful verse. Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. This verse is also really, really close to my heart. You have the strength and ability to cope with every task and problem you will ever face in life. Having faith in your own ability and trust that Allah will look after you. Tawakkul, basically. When it gets difficult to manage, ask Allah to help you with your burden and make it lighter for you. Oh Allah, this is a dua that you can refer to later on. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from grief and sadness, from weakness and from laziness, from my silliness and from cowardice, from being overcome by debt and overpowered by men, that is others. It's a good idea to recite the above dua, which covers a range of stressful problems, but you should also make a specific dua for your situation. Now, last one, ask for help. Part of taking care of your mental health is knowing when to ask others to help you take care of it. In addition to calling on Allah, tell family and friends what you're going through and ask for advice. Okay, so I will repeat this again and again. I have been, whenever I talk to people, I always ask them to seek professional help, because mental health is as important as your physical health. And if you do, if like come on, no one would compromise with their physical health, then I don't understand why do people compromise with their mental health. And it's very it gets problematic. The problems, they increase if you don't seek professional help. There is no shame in asking for mental health help, just like there is no shame in telling your doctor about a problem with your vision or digestion. It's as normal as that. Don't think that your problem can't be shared, explained, or understood. It takes a lot more effort and strength to deal with the problem alone than it takes to share it. However difficult that's to believe. Moreover, the people who love you will want to help you just as you would want to help them with their mental health. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation, and we'll conclude with a beautiful lesson from the Quran. For indeed, with every hardship there is relief. Indeed, with every hardship there is relief. Thank you.